Okay, this is Unit 5, Lesson 5, second semester, 7th grade math. Vocabulary review. A blank is a ratio that compares a number to 100. Who can answer that question? Miranda. A percent. Remember per 100? Percent per century, 100%, per 100. A percent is a ratio that compares a number to 100. Okay? Write each ratio as a percent. Some of you guys might mentally know these, or you might have these memorized. That's fine, but I do want to go over how we figure out what the percentage is. Who knows number 2? Charles? 85%. 85%? No. Olu? 80%. How'd you figure that out?
So 4 out of 5 is 4 over 5.
Uh-huh.
And so I have to get, the denominator has to be 100.
Uh-huh.
So I did 5, the denominator times 20.
Nice. Very good. So Olu's exactly correct. He took 4 out of 5 to be 4/5, and then he wanted to get the denominator to be 100. So the denominator, 5 times 20, would give you 100. That means if you multiply the numerator 4 times 20, that would give you 80, so 80%. Okay, are we good? Any questions about that? Number 3, who has number 3? Joel? Alexis? 25%. Do you guys agree? Okay, let's take a look. Now, here we simplify it, right? 5 out of 20. And then 5/20ths, 25%. You could have done long division, and you would have got 25, right? That way too. I'm not sure. There's a couple methods, but 25% is correct. Very good. And then the last one. Who has the last one? Somebody I haven't heard from yet? Jaden?
7%.
What'd you say?
7%.
7%. How'd you do that?
Because 200 is a factor of 100, so I
Okay, right. So for 200ths, you can simplify that so that the denominator is 100 by dividing by 2. So you get 7 out of 100. That is 7%. Any questions about this? This is all review. Okay, so very easy lesson today. All right. What you'll learn: to identify a random sample and to write a survey question. New vocabulary: population, sample, random sample, bias question. Why learn this? You can use a survey to gather information from a group of people. Pollsters use surveys to understand group preferences. A pollster is somebody who is conducting a survey and they're asking the questions of people. Okay? A population is a group of objects or people. The population of an election is all the people who vote in that election. It's not practical to ask all the voters how they expect to vote. Pollsters select a sample or a part of the population. A sample is called a random sample when each member of the population has the same chance of being selected. Okay, so let's clarify some of these vocabulary words. Population. So I'll give you an example as far as numbers in a hat. So if I'm going to give you a chance of selecting a number out of a hat, and I have the numbers 1 through 10 in the hat, and none of the numbers repeat, and if you were to pull a number out of the hat without looking, that would be a random sample because each of those numbers have an equal chance of being selected. Does that make sense? Now, a sample that wouldn't be random, let's just say I had every number in the hat, and again, you're going to select a number out of the hat without looking, but I want you to pick 7, so I'm going to put 10, 7 in that hat. 10 number 7s in that hat. Does that make sense? So do you guys understand that you have more chances of picking the number 7 out than the other numbers? So that's not a random sample because you don't have an equal possibility of selecting any number in that hat. 7, there's more of them in the hat, so you have more opportunity to pick a 7 out. There's more probability or more chance. We're going to talk about that in the next unit a little bit. So let's talk about identifying a random sample. Okay, you survey customers at a mall. You want to know which stores they shop at the most. Which sample is more likely to be random? So the first scenario. You survey shoppers in a computer store. Is that a random sample? Why or why not? Khadijah. Okay. Yeah, people shopping in a computer store are might just be shopping at the computer store, right? So what about the people that don't shop at the computer store? You might have some people that don't even have a computer, right? So that is not a random sample. And here's the book explanation. You need to have an equal possibility of selecting anybody shopping at the mall. And if you're just at the computer store, you're not giving everybody an equal possibility of being surveyed. Does that make sense? So the book's explanation: customers that shop in a particular store may not represent all the shoppers in the entire mall. So that's not a random sample. How about the next one? You walk around the mall and survey shoppers. That's more likely to be random, right? So here's the book explanation. By walking around, you give everyone in the mall the same chance to be surveyed. This sample is more likely to be random. All right, pretty easy so far. Any questions about what a random sample is? Okay, in order for it to be a random sample, everybody needs to have the same possibility being selected for the survey. Okay? Any questions about this material? All right. Now, let's try this again. You survey a store's customers. You ask why they choose the store. Which sample is more likely to be random? First scenario, you survey 20 people at the entrance from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Random, not as random. Who's got something to say about that? Tata.
I think it's not as random because usually they're all the time, not like just from between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m.
Very good. So I like what Tata just said. She said, no, you should be there for all the hours of operation because some people aren't going to shop in the evening time, especially from 5 to 8 p.m., right? So in order for it to be truly random, it would need to include the other times as well. So less likely to be random. You may only get the people shopping after work, not the people during the daytime. Okay, and then the next one, I think Tata actually answered this question already in her answer for A. You survey people at the entrance throughout the day. Who's got something to say about that? That's more likely to be random, right? Because you can get any of your customers that would shop at any time of the day. Okay, not just the people shopping after work. All right, now let's talk about this, biased questions. Okay, when you conduct a survey, ask questions that do not influence the answer. A biased question is a question that makes an unjustified assumption or makes some answers appear better than others. So I'm going to give you something to look out for when you're trying to determine if something's biased. If it uses adjectives that are opinion-based, like this tastes yucky, right? Or this color's ugly, opinion-based adjectives, not adjectives that are factual, like the color of this car is blue. That's an adjective that describes the car, but it's not opinion-based. Does that make sense? So if the adjectives are something that you would use to describe something based upon your opinion, that's more likely to be a biased question. So let me show you some biased and unbiased questions. Identifying biased questions. So we're going to talk about music. Is the question biased or fair? Here we go. Question A, do you think that soothing classical music is more pleasing than loud, obnoxious pop music that teenagers listen to? Does that sound biased or fair? Biased. Now, for somebody who likes pop music or is a teenager, they're probably going to still vote for pop music, right? Somebody that's kind of on the fence, that doesn't feel one way or the other, they might be swayed one way or the other based upon the biased question. Do you guys understand? Okay. So the question is biased against pop music. It implies that all pop music is loud and that only teenagers listen to it. The adjectives soothing and obnoxious may also influence people's responses. Now, let's take a look at the next one. Which do you think is the most common age group of people who like pop music? That's a fair question. There's no adjectives that are opinion-based, right? It's just saying, hey, what age group do you think for pop and classical? Or just pop music, excuse me. So this one is a fair question. It does not assume that the listener of pop music fall into one age group. And Last one. Do you prefer classical music or pop music? It's fair. It's not describing one or the other with a adjective that would be opinion-based, right? It's just saying, hey, which one do you like, classical or pop? Okay? So that one is fair. It does not make any assumptions about classical music, pop music, or people. Okay? Pretty easy so far? All right. We're almost done. Okay, some more examples. Is the question biased or fair? Let's explain. Do you prefer greasy meat or healthy vegetables on your pizza? Definitely biased. Biased. The question implies that meat is greasy and vegetables are healthy. So that is a biased question. How about the next one? Which pizza topping do you like best? Fair. It's not. It doesn't have any adjectives that would give you would imply an opinion, right? That is a fair question. Makes no assumptions about the toppings. Okay. Now, end of the lesson. Match each statement with the appropriate term. Okay, a group of objects or people. Population. That is the population. Very good. Okay, make some answers appear better. Very good, bias. And then obviously gives members of a group the same chance of being selected. Random sample. Okay. Okay, you want to determine the favorite spectator sport of 7th graders at your school. You ask the first 27th graders who arrive at a soccer game, is soccer your favorite sport to watch? What was the population of your survey? What was the sample? What was the population of your survey? 27th graders what? Robert in the back? You're making an assumption. Your population is 27th graders that arrived at the soccer game. So they're people who attended a soccer game. Okay? What kind of sample was this? Would you say this is a random sample? No, why not? You're asking people at a soccer game what their favorite sport to watch is, right? If soccer is their favorite sport. If you didn't like soccer, would you show up at a soccer game? Probably not. So 7th graders attending a soccer game, and the survey was or was not random. It was not random. Okay? Would you say that you use a biased or fair question? Here's a situational bias. You're asking people at a soccer game if soccer is their favorite sport, right? That's almost like, here's another situation. Shh. Here's another situation. You go to a swimming pool and ask people, do you like to swim? Right? Wouldn't that be biased? Because the situation is what makes it biased. Does that make sense? Okay.